And that is the ad hoc committee that is investigating the claims of the KZN Police Commissioner General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi about the infiltration of South Africa's criminal justice system. And so it's been another heated day of testimony at both the Madlanga Commission and this Parliamentary ad hoc committee, the bodies looking into allegations of infiltration into South Africa's criminal justice system. Into the conversation now, let's bring in the former Western Cape head of detectives, Jeremy Vearey, who joins us to unpack some of what we've heard. General, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us. I am going to start this conversation on specific testimonies that have to do with Minister Senzo Mchunu, because at both these two bodies, you have people that clearly directly link the Minister Senzo Mchunu to Mr. Brown Mogotsi. And let's start with the ad hoc committee, where it is his chief of staff. I know he's now referred to as former chief of staff in the police minister's office. And Mr. Nkabinde says he was asked to arrange 2 meetings with Mr. Brown Mogotsi. The first one did not work out. The second one did take place, and it took place at Stilfontein, but this was under the guise that this would be a meeting of community leaders, because remember, there was that standoff between the police and the illegal miners at the time who happened to be trapped underground. Operation Valumgodi was being spearheaded by the police then. Do we now accept, or do we still need further confirmation about Minister Mchunu knowing Brown Mogotsi and knowing him pretty well?
No, I think we had more than what witnesses actually saying that they know it. As to the exact content of that relationship, we haven't heard much, okay? And neither from the mouth of the minister before, and I hope the minister will be recalled to explain that in the light of what now emerged from Nkabinde's testimony. And so that firstly needs to explain. It's also clear we need a deeper look, otherwise it looks like there's a coincidental convergence of people knowing each other suddenly around these events. I think the people have a much longer association with each other, and that needs to be explored before one takes the suddenness without the benefit of that history as indicative of some immediate conspiracy tied to more recent events. Yeah. One must look at where this relationship was, what was the depth of it, and if it had involved some degree of compromise between the different parties, whether the basis for that does not come in terms of the relationship well before then. Now, Mr. Brown Mogotsi, to what has been testified before and also came out of the Madlanga Commission, did play a role, so like Minister Mchunu did long before, in the ANC, long before these events, when in the province where Mogotsi was, he was instrumental to the CR17 campaign. Yeah. So we're going to have to take a much more deeper probe if we want to understand whether what happens later has some meaning tied to past associations. Yeah. So, and that I think is going to be important. So the minister has to be recalled, Brown has to come and explain, so that we are able to look at these things retrospectively in order to understand the comfortableness, the comfort with which people were so easily engaging with each other around these cause of events now.
Yes. So this is why I'm happy you are bringing in to this conversation the Madlanga inquiry as well, because we're now going to do this interchangeably and very quickly so. And I want us now to have a listen to what clearly is a deeper history, as you've put it, between Brown Mogotsi and Senzo Mchunu. And the reason we're doing this is because of the minister very stridently denying that he has any deeper knowledge of Brown Mogotsi apart from him being a fellow comrade in the ANC. So let's take a listen to Brown Mogotsi, who details here, back in 2017, what his role was at that time in relation or in his relationship with Senzo Mchunu.
You have a direct line to the minister. Your evidence yesterday was that you only call the chief of staff when you can't get to the minister directly.
That's correct.
And we saw multiple signal chats that you had with the minister over the period December, January 2024, 2025.
That's correct.
And the minister was calling you on several occasions, not you calling the minister.
As people knowing each other is possible. That's correct.
Can you say why the minister would have no knowledge of you, or why the minister would, when he was first asked about whether he knew you, said that he didn't?
I don't know why he said that, for the fact, except the answer that I'll give you what he said to me. I asked him, he said, the time when he was talking, there was a picture of somebody, which was, the impression was, the picture was portrayed as if it's Brown Mogotsi. And he said, I don't know this person.
General Veary, there we go. Brown Mogotsi confirming, and the commission, to add to this, it says, the evidence leader, there is a trail of discussions via the application. It's called Signal. It's one of those encrypted platforms, apparently, where your conversations cannot possibly be spied on. But the commission has this record now of the minister actually calling Brown Mogotsi and vice versa. Why would Minister Mchunu deny a person he clearly knows?
Well, I can't speculate on that, but it's something that Minister Mchunu must be recalled to Parliament to come and explain, because we definitely now have. He needs to respond to other testimony that he has a much deeper relationship. But I think one of the things that concerns me about how most people are testifying now is just going back to Brian Mogotsi. I think his revelation that he was on crime intelligence payroll as an informant, and that he had been recruited a very, very long time ago, is something that requires us to need to look at what he was tasked. He ends up gravitating around the CR17 campaign, around Minister Mchunu and several other figures that, despite questions around what he says, the content of that relationship, just how that happened. And the question needs to be asked whether this was not on direction by way of tasking from his crime intelligence handlers. And when I was listening to Mogotsi, given my experience also in the intelligence process, I was wondering whether we're not dealing with a provocateur, agent provocateur here, rather than a person who's out there to gather information supportive of the mission and objects of the South African Police Service. Because there doesn't seem to be any information that results in any concrete result. But one thing it does do it does cause damage to the figures around which a person like Mogotsi operates. Now, we need to determine, and his handlers need to be explained, whether he was directed towards that end. And if so, how that tasking possibly doesn't relate to other developments within the ANC, given previous conferences and previous deliberately fostered divisions in some cases. And if there is a degree of crime intelligence involvement that comes with the abuse or use of agent provocateurs, then the public needs to know. Then what we're seeing on the surface needs a deeper look.
You say what we're seeing on the surface needs a deeper look. What the Madlanga Commission is possibly clear on about Brown Mogotsi, the witness before them right now, is that he probably is not going to come out of this a reliable witness. I mean, the evidence leader talks about him or labels him a professional liar, and this is something that he strongly disagrees with. At the end of it, at the end of his testimony, Brown Mogotsi, do you think that based on what you've heard, do you even believe the story that he is indeed a paid informant in the payroll of crime intelligence?
Well, he hasn't proved that, but he has mentioned he wrote a name on a piece of paper secretly, and it was passed over to the judge. That requires that the Madlanga Commission now calls those handlers that he refers to. Now, it will be fairly easy, given his inability or his economy of truth in the way he testifies, to want to use a different term to describe lies. Yeah. But it would be important that they go look at, if he was on the books, go draw his production file and go draw his original registration file. And that will determine two things. One, the first one, and it's governed by National Instruction 1 of 2021, that involves the administration and the financial running and the management of informants in the South African Police Service. Once that file is drawn, we will know, firstly, is he on the books in terms of the first file, because his name will be in that file. Yeah. And in the second file, the production file, for want of a better word, just to simplify it for the public, that would involve the tasks that he was given throughout his history as an informant, as well as whether or not whatever information he gave was reliable and produced any tangible results. Now, if he is registered and all of that is there, and he never achieved any results, and he was still paid, the question is for what? All right. Then we need to go call the handlers and ask, what did you task this person to do outside of the objects of the South African Police Service? Because if this person is that long on this book, on your books, and you're paying that particular person, and what we're seeing now reflects more the conduct of an agent provocateur, then you must come and explain why, and whether there's not other motives besides the objects of the police that are involved. And that is something we might be able to find much more substance now that an informant has identified himself as, and if it is proven, actually cast much more light on it.
Yeah. Jeremy Vearey?
Because we know at Polokwane, at other spokesperson, these things happened. Crime intelligence was involved in things, maybe through a person who's economical with the truth like him, and what we're now forced to look beyond to determine whether he's a bona fide fine, and we might find answers to those type of questions.
Jeremy Vearey, if we had more time, I was going to certainly put the questions to you when you talk about people that need to be called. Robert McBride and Paul O'Sullivan are new figures that we are hearing information about. Well, not necessarily Paul O'Sullivan, because the understanding is that he has been mentioned, at least at the ad hoc committee before, and that's why they have him on a list of people that they're going to call. But Robert McBride comes up today, and he comes up in the most extraordinary of claims that have been made by Cedric Nkabinde. But unfortunately, we've run out of time, and so we're going to have to tease out that conversation at a different time. But thank you very much for tonight.